Hi, I'm Ross Barry and welcome to Friday 5 at 5, May 8. 3 Central Coast firefighters have been honoured in the New South Wales Rural Fire Service's annual Bravery and Service Awards. Retired Group Captain Warwick Teasdale of the Kilcare Wagstaff Brigade was honoured for more than 40 years of service. Warwick first joined the brigade in 1976 and has held a variety of positions, including Group Captain for the Gosford District from 1999. In addition, Captain William Jock Ross and Senior Deputy Captain Alison Wade of Spencer Brigade have each received the Commissioner's Commendation for Bravery for the heroic rescue of a resident and his dog from a house fire on April 1, 2019.
For us, it's because we are a small brigade in a small township, and it's just good to be able to have that acknowledgement. It's usually the same people that turn out for call out.
Central Coast councillors will vote on Monday, May 11, on a state government directive to implement a local planning panel to decide on development applications. The handover of planning approval responsibility has been a highly contentious issue with concerns about bypassing of community consultations on large developments. The state government has already taken away councillors' power to decide on regional or state significant developments, and given smaller applications are dealt with by council staff under delegated authority, the directive means that councillors would no longer decide on any development application in the region. We asked Councillor Chris Holstein for his reflections.
The question is, will the public be heard in their concerns about the development applications? As it is, when it was always at council, there's always a criticism that council's not listening to the community, that, that people have concerns with the development. Will the panels give that assurity to the community that their concerns are being addressed and that the issues are part of their assessment? I suppose that's proof of that is only going to be in the pudding, mate.
Let's go now to David Abrahams.
Sorry, Ross, just checking my TikTok. Well, another important debate before council was over a proposal by Councillor Gale to investigate whether developer contributions could be borrowed by council for funding of operational activities, given the decline in cash balances since the onset of the pandemic. CEO Gary Murphy said the short answer was no. And Councillor Kyle McGregor went a little further and called it economic vandalism and said the contributions were restricted for a reason, to be used for footpaths, parks and the like. Environmental Justice Australia has joined 6 community groups to submit a request to the EPA to conduct a detailed investigation into Delta Electricity Power Station at Vales Point. I spoke earlier with EGA spokesperson Nicola Rivers.
Yeah, what we'd really like to happen is firstly the EPA to do a full investigation. So Vales Point reported that their emissions increased, particularly their PM2.5 emissions, increased by 181% from the previous year. And then if you look at the trend over about 6 years, it's increased by 3,000%. Secondly, really accept that the level of pollution from the power stations, Vales Point and others in New South Wales, is too high, and it can be really easily fixed if they make better limits, pollution limits in the licences that require the power stations to fit best practice pollution controls. So, power stations all around the world have best practice pollution controls installed. It's mandatory in so many countries, and it's not mandatory in Australia. And we really need the New South Wales government and New South Wales EPA to say we are going to put the priority in the health of the community first, and we're going to ask these power stations to install these pollution controls.
And St Huberts Island Residents Association have objected to council's proposed suicide safety barrier on the St Huberts Island Bridge. The council's plan involves installing 3-metre high mesh fencing on both sides of the bridge. But Association President Mr Ken Stewart said the mesh would not stop people jumping, as it could easily be gripped and climbed upon. 9 peninsula-based organisations have been granted a total of $200,000 under the Community Building Partnership Program, with the amount of $100,000 going to Umina Beach Men's Shed to build a permanent premise. One of the other worthy recipients was the Peninsula Environment Group, who was granted $12,000 for improvements at Woy Woy Peninsula Community Garden. And in another funding announcement, the federal government is providing an immediate funding injection to 7 Central Coast-based charities and community organisations to support locals in the wake of the coronavirus economic downturn. We spoke earlier today with Robertson MP Lucy Wicks about the package.
We know that people in our community are doing it really tough right now, and that's why I'm so pleased that the Morrison government is able to deliver this much needed funding to organisations that really do support our local community, to support emergency cash payments, food, everyday bills, transport and school supplies.
Back to you, Ross.
Thanks, David. Well, in breaking sports news, speculation is growing as to whether the New Zealand Warriors will make the Central Coast their home base for the remainder of the shortened NRL season. The Warriors flew into Tamworth earlier this week for 2 weeks of quarantine and light training, but the club has made it clear that it does not intend to remain in Tamworth beyond the quarantine period and is looking to establish a base closer to Sydney. In a Zoom interview for the NRL, Warriors CEO Cameron George indicated a clear preference for the group to locate at the Central Coast.
And then we'll, all intents and purposes, we're probably going to locate at the Central Coast. A facility there will be able to accommodate all the families as they, eventually come over throughout the year. So Tamworth's a great starting point for us, and we'll go into camp and train very hard in a wonderful rugby league community. We're aware that there's a 18-round competition, but I'm not overly sure what the venue strategy is around that. Whether they have 2 or 3 central grounds, I'm not quite sure. However, if we're based on the Central Coast, obviously there's a stadium there, and also we're close to Newcastle and also close to Sydney. So the ideal scenario would be the Central Coast, but naturally that could differ from the NRL's views.
And a spokesperson for the Central Coast Council on Thursday confirmed the council is currently in discussions with the Warriors to train at Central Coast Stadium. And we close today with some help for anyone who has forgotten to do something nice for their mum this Sunday. This clip, courtesy of TikTok, is a step-by-step guide on how to get back into the good books. That's all for now. Please check out Coast Community News, issue 241, hot off the press today and full of these stories and many more, as well as a really challenging Sudoku. See you next week.